Hi, I'm Gayla. After 20 years of climbing the corporate ladder, I took the leap and started my own business to pursue my dream of creating a work-from-anywhere lifestyle. Having the freedom to work from practically anywhere is such a cool feeling. You're in the right place if you're looking for ideas and inspiration to start and grow your own online business. Every week in this podcast, you'll receive practical ideas, hints, tips, and tricks to help you grow your online business where you can leverage your time and you can accomplish more. You too can experience wonderful adventure and freedom as you live life on your own terms. Merrill Stewart is the CEO of Marketing and Business Solutions and brings her experience in marketing and communications for both the for-profit and nonprofit sectors. I'm so excited to have her on the show today. Merrill's experience includes over 10 years in nonprofit fundraising and support, including roles as Director of Development for a 120-year-old child and family-centered nonprofit in Tampa, raising $2 million in support each year in addition to implementation of annual fundraising initiatives, social media strategy, fundraising strategy planning, marketing, communications, grant writing, major gift solicitation, community and volunteer support. She's also worked with the Boys and Girls Club of Manatee County, where she gained extensive experience in fundraising, event planning, donor cultivation, public relations, corporate communications, and marketing. Merrill's experience includes over 15 years in the for-profit sector, including work with Clear Channel Communications Radio in the Tampa and Sarasota-Bradenton markets, in the banking industry, and customer service. She has planned and implemented promotions and marketing opportunities for area businesses while employed for Clear Channel Communications Radio in Tampa, and successful management of the marketing promotions and communications team covering 8 radio brands in the Sarasota-Bradenton market. Experience in both markets included working with the sales team and business owners to develop successful promotions to increase awareness and business via radio messaging and events, and recruitment of all materials necessary to launch successful on-air promotions. Merrill served as the Director of Marketing and Communications for First Priority Bank based in Manatee County through its expansion from 3 branches to 6 locations in just a 6-month period of time. She oversaw all marketing, advertising design and placement, community giving, public relations, and website development on behalf of the business across varied target audiences and customers. I love having conversations with Merrill, and I wanted you to meet her as well. She gives great insight on growing her business and what drives her why. Without further ado, let's hop right into the interview. Well, hey, Merrill, thanks for joining me today.
Hey, Gayla, thanks for having me.
Before we begin into our conversation, I would love for you to tell my listeners a little bit about yourself.
Sure. So my name is Merrill Stewart. I'm the CEO of Marketing and Business Solutions. We're kind of a full service marketing and communications and revenue generation company. We work with a number of different clients, for-profit, nonprofit, and kind of everything in between. You know, I didn't start as an entrepreneur. I started in a corporate position with a radio station that I had kind of gotten into by happenstance. I was taking a course and someone said, you guys need to do some volunteer hours. And a friend of mine and I decided we were going to see if we could count hours in an internship at a radio station towards our coursework if we only worked on radio station promotions that serve nonprofits. And how we even came up with that idea, I couldn't tell you, but the radio station said yes, our professor said yes, and we both started on this journey. And from that, I spent, I don't know, about 6 years working in the media industry and radio, working on marketing and promotions. And I just fell in love with marketing. It kind of, set me on a path and a journey that I wasn't expecting. And from that, I got into nonprofit. I ended up taking a position with a youth development organization doing special events and marketing. And that had kind of propelled me into another position I got recruited for a job working with a local bank that needed a marketing person, and I got to create the department. And I thought, how cool is that? So I joined their team and did that. And then 2008, when all the business elements of the world kind of crashed, I found myself kind of searching, for what I wanted to do next. And I landed in my kind of last nonprofit position, working on communications, and then it developed into kind of a position that oversaw an entire fundraising team. And we raised millions of dollars every year. And I did that until the point that I had our first daughter, and just really valued having more flexibility over my time and wanted to make sure that the work I was doing was very rewarding, selfishly to me, but also used my talents in a way that really helped others. And so I started this company and been doing it for almost 8 years now. And I've loved every second of it. It's been rewarding in ways that I didn't expect. And I hope that it continues.
I think that's funny how you fell into marketing unexpectedly. I mean, really, was your major in school totally different?
So I started as, I'll take you briefly through it. I started as a physical therapy major. I thought I wanted to be a physical therapist. So I knew I would have to do something in the health field. And I think I wanted to because one of my cousins was a physical therapist, and I just thought it sounded cool and seemed like a cool thing to do. And after taking biology, like for the third time, because I could not memorize stuff, my brain wants to know how things work and why things work. And for some reason, memorizing statistics and information about biology just did not stick in my head. I remember having a conversation with my roommate in college and saying, sobbing, like, I don't know what I want to be. What am I going to do? I can't even pass biology. I got to take all these health, and science classes. And she started laughing at me, and she's like, well, I think your name sounds like a business name anyway. I think you're in the wrong field. And and I laughed, and I thought, what? And she's like, yeah, I think you need to go over to the College of Business. I thought, okay, well, in high school, I was really good at math. I enjoyed accounting. My dad was a CPA, well, still is, and I thought, okay, well, let me check this business stuff out. And so I actually decided to change my major to accounting, and I was going to get my degree in accounting. And I got, I don't know, 3/4 of the way through that coursework, and I had to take some elective classes, and marketing was part of that. And I got into the marketing classes, and I just fell in love with the creativity and the just kind of excitement and personalities of the people, which were much different than the students taking accounting classes. It was just like night and day
Yes.
difference. And you had like these socialites, and then you had these like number crunchers. It was really interesting. But what I realized about myself was that my brain actually works both ways, and I'm good at both. And I remember talking to an advisor and saying, well, I'm going to double major. And she's like, well, in what? And I said, I'm going to get an accounting degree, and I'm going to get a marketing degree. And she's like, well, that won't work. And I'm like, why? And she's like, because people don't do both. And I said, well, I can do both. And she said, well, they don't. And she's like, you can do whatever you want, but I don't think you're going to be successful at it. And I'm like, okay, well, that's more fuel to the fire for me to try. Right.
Yes.
So I did both. And I wasn't willing to throw away the 3 years of blood, sweat, and tears to get through accounting because it was hard.
Yeah.
So I finished it, and I double majored in marketing. So, it served me well in all the roles I've had. But yeah, I kind of fell into it,
that is so great that you found that and you made the shift in college. I love that. And I love that you're like, you're not going to tell me that I can't do this. I'm going to prove you wrong. I love that, because who are they to say that we can't do both? Like,
right.
that can complement if our brain thinks that way. it complements our whole experience in life, and we can serve people and serve ourselves amazing ways. Why can't we
Well,
like both?
and I think it helps us, really think through a couple things. One is learning how to stand up for yourself and to, protect what is a good thing for you. But the other is that it's kind of one of those moments where when you're met with a challenge, like you either decide that you're going to move forward and do the best you can to meet that challenge, or you're going to back away from it and listen to what everyone else says and kind of go with the flow. And although there have been moments where I have learned how to back down and maybe not fight a fight, most of the time, if someone says no to me, it makes me want to do it 300 times more. And just to, number one, probably selfishly prove them wrong, but two, to really see if I could do it.
Mhm.
So I think it's fun.
I love
I'm
it.
I'm glad that that's part of who I am.
Mhm. Well, with your business, how do you serve your clients? You serve both nonprofit and for profit, but and you're a marketing group, but how do you serve?
So, there's a couple different ways that clients get to us. I think that, many times we have clients who think that they just don't, they need help telling their story. They need help getting their message out. They don't know how, they don't know where to start. They don't know what the strategy looks like. And there's a lot of components to that. I mean, there's people who come in and say, we need to rebrand ourselves. Well, that's, not just a logo and a color. I mean, that's that very essence of who you are as a business and what you represent. The colors and the graphics that represent you is part of that process. So there's folks who kind of have an identity issue, and then there's others that have more of a communication issue. And what we do is really listen to what it is that their challenge is, and then start strategizing and coming up with a path and a solution to get to that, to that end goal. And so sometimes that looks like creating a marketing strategy that includes all the initiatives that go into carrying out that strategy. Sometimes it's taking that strategy and helping them implement it because maybe they don't have enough members of the team or the expertise at the table to really do that on their own. And they need to leverage someone else's expertise for a while until they can generate more revenue or be in a different position to bring someone on. And so, there's that. But what happens is typically is that we start with marketing and communications, and then we realize they really need help generating money, and their messaging and how they tell their story is very much tied to their profits, whether it's a sales team or it's a fundraising team. That messaging component is really a key part, because it's hard to sell something to a customer if you don't know how to talk about it, and it's really hard to convince people to invest from a donor perspective if you don't know how to talk about it. Kind of the magic of what we do kind of brings those two worlds together. On the other hand, we have people that come to us and say, we need help generating revenue. One of the things that I decided for our business that we would do early on is that we would be registered as a solicitor to fundraise on behalf of organizations. Our team is kind of made up of just a few people, and then we bring in experts into our client engagements that really help a specific need and have a level of expertise that maybe we don't, but that complements our work style and our practice. Through that, the revenue generation side, we're working with teams and showing them and teaching them, how to sell, how to ask for money, what are all of the follow-up elements and organizational process elements that need to be in place so that's scalable, so that the next people that come on or the next people that succeed, current staff can do it too. And a lot of times it's working with, the leadership teams to really identify the strengths and weaknesses of not just the leadership, but also the employees that they have in place to do the work. And really figuring out, okay, is everybody doing the right thing? Are they playing the right role? And then if they are, what tools are we giving them to be successful? How are we empowering them to be able to do their jobs well and efficiently so that they can generate money, tell their story, connect with their audiences, and retain those customers long after the initial transaction has happened. So it's been fun. It's been fun to watch people grow. It's been fun to help organizations and companies increase their profits and better position leadership to be in a place that can really focus on their strengths as leaders and their teams still be efficient.
I hear words like telling their story, figuring things out, how to communicate. It's really building a relationship, connecting
Hmm.
with folks for an end goal that would result in a sale.
Right.
And it brings to mind, and I guess the word PR or public relations, is that different than marketing? What's your take on that?
So I think that there's things the textbooks would say, and then there's things that actually happen in practice.
Yes,
What
absolutely.
I
What's
would
in
say,
real life?
right, right. So in real life, it all's kind of mushed together, right? It's
Right.
people use marketing and communications interchangeably. And from a textbook perspective, they're not. In a practice perspective, they bleed over each other and they overlap, but they also complement each other. So part of a marketing strategy, a marketing strategy includes a lot of different things. Communications, in my opinion, is part of the marketing strategy. The communications piece also looks, segmented and fragmented in different ways you can carry that out. So marketing standpoint, the objective might be that we want to connect with customers to promote X product that we have. The way that we're going to promote X product is that we are going to be active on social media, that we're going to releases, that we're going to better position the company as a subject matter expert in what they do, so that people from a customer perspective feel like, okay, if I buy this from this company, they know what they're doing, they're making something quality, or they're changing or impacting the world that they're in because of the practices that they have. And so PR is most definitely different now than it did 10 or 20 years ago. I mean, PR is not just sending out a press release to mass media outlets and hoping someone's going to pick up your story. It used to be more like that because you had newspaper and television and radio and very traditional ways of communicating. But now public relations has to include social media, and it has to include pitching very like trade organizations or publications on the work that you're doing, so that your expertise is shining through with the audience that you really want to hear that. Kind of the mass broadcast approach is an approach, and I'm not saying it's bad, but it also has to be complemented with kind of very specific and strategic ways that you're connecting with your audience. And so that public relations strategy, in my opinion, is part of your overall communication strategy, and that communication strategy is ingrained into your marketing strategy. I hope that kind of sets the
Yes.
stage, or at least how we think about helping
Well,
clients.
and that also, you said that in branding, it's not a logo and colors, it's all this communication and how it intermingles, and that builds your brand of who you are, what you stand for, who you serve, is what I'm understanding.
Exactly.
And that's my philosophy as well, is like, how do we communicate with one another, build these relationships? And it is all it's it, I get frustrated with textbook definitions because it's all interconnected on building a good, strong relationship.
Relationships, I think, are a really important part of how we view what strategies will work as well. I think that many people consider sales transactional, right? But a really good salesperson is really good at relationships. And it's about creating long-term solutions and short-term solutions for someone that they're working with a client. It's the same with donors and fundraising. If we're just going and asking for money one time, that's great, but what happens when you have to go back to them again? So if people look at it more from a relationship perspective, what are the steps and kind of building blocks that I have to put into place to ensure that this conversation, that these interactions last beyond that gift or that sale? I think it's much people tend to retain people longer and customer bases grow because your perspective is slightly different.
You really know how to just put that all together. That's wonderful. When you were starting your business, you said 8 years ago. What was the first thing? I mean, what tipped
Mhm.
you? It was you wanted more freedom of your schedule with the birth of your daughter. So what did that look like when you first started out? How did you first market? I mean, how did you get your first clients?
Well, first I have to say I was scared to death. I am the one of my husband and I that is I would categorize myself as a non-risk taker. I was very comfortable with having a job and knowing what my paycheck was going to be and doing that. He's the one that I think would jump off a cliff and then worry about whether or not he had a parachute. It was just a really interesting growth process. But to what you said, initially it was the birth of our first daughter. We have two, but that kind of changed my perspective. I really found myself not wanting to miss out on things. And although I knew that I didn't want to be at home with her full time, although I think people that can just have a gift for that, and I have so much respect for that. But I just knew that I needed to be engaged in something that was mine and something that allowed that flexibility. And so, I talked to a lot of people. I talked to a lot of my trusted colleagues, business owners that I respected, to really get their take on the need in the market. And I was talking to them about what I was good at doing, what I thought I wanted to do with this business, and put it out there from a testing perspective to see, okay, is there a need? Is there going to be a customer base for me? And I found the answer was yes, because of the perspective I had and the way I was looking at things and how I communicate with clients now that we have. But in the beginning, the goal was really to get like 2 or 3 clients that I could at least know that I was going to have a paycheck. And that was kind of the perspective. Like, it didn't feel super strategic, but it just felt like, okay, how do we survive so that I can get my feet under myself and then continue on? And so we did. I had my sister was actually working for a company in Texas, and I was able to come in and help them with development work. And then I had another smaller nonprofit organization that needed like graphic design work and help. And so I did some of that. But then I had a third in this woman who I have so much respect for, and she owns a tech company in Florida. But she, said, well, as soon as you leave, we'll come on as a client. And I remember having a conversation with somebody that I respected. I was scared to leave, to like put in my notice and leave my job and take this leap. And he said to me, he said, you know what? He's like, it's kind of like when one door closes, the other door opens. But what he said is, he's like, you cannot be efficient and successful with your feet on both sides of the door. You can't have one foot in and one foot out and be 100% to both sides. You've got to put both feet 100% in. And if you do that, you will be successful at whatever you do. But if you try to fragment yourself, you won't. And I thought that's a really powerful thing to say and kind of a visual to have. And so I made the decision. I put my notice in and I decided I'm going in 100%. And if I go in 100%, that means that like, this is where we're headed. And so I put my notice in. That other client came on. That was steady for about 3 months. But what I knew from the start, and having enough background in marketing, was that the business development side of building the customer base couldn't stop no matter what. And so everywhere I went, every person I talked to, I went on LinkedIn and connected with folks who I hadn't talked to in a long time. I told everybody what I was doing. And in doing that, it opened up doors and opportunities. And our next clients came, and our next clients came, and our next clients. And I was able to pretty much discern quickly that, number one, it would take about 3 months for us to close any client contract, because that's just how long it took for people to absorb the idea and get approval. And so I always had to be 3 months ahead, at least 3 months ahead. But I replaced my income in the first 6 months that we had our business going. And I did not give up. And I haven't given up since. I mean, this is an ongoing journey, but those initial clients were enough for me to say, okay, I can. And then once I realized that I was out there and doing it, it just kind of created this momentum that hasn't stopped. So it's been pretty rewarding that way.
I love that. You started out, you're practical. Okay, I need 3 clients. And with a little bit of a nudge that was fantastic advice. Do you miss anything from going back, or do you like?
I wouldn't go back. I enjoy the freedom of having flexibility over my own time. I mean, we're still raising kids. And so that is a really important factor for our family dynamic. But there's something else, I guess, I realized that I wouldn't have known before, is that there is a different level of respect when you are brought in as a consultant to help someone solve a problem that they have, there's a perceived level of expertise that they are paying for. That is, you are treated differently in that regard and in that role than you are many times as an employee. And that's really sad to say, but it's just different. There's just a different perception coming in as someone that has a level of expertise that someone's paying an employee. I do not want to have that perception, change. I enjoy being the person that gets to come in and help somebody and use all my skills and talents to better them and then leave them in a better place and move on. Something I could not have anticipated either is that, I still do a lot of work on business development for our own business. I'm constantly looking for our next product and how do we help them. But we've had a ton of repeat business, people that just felt treated well and that we provided, the right level of services and expertise at that time, where they've come back and now they have another problem or something different. And they're like, you know what, there's a lot of people that could do this, but our company, our brand, our business. We want you to help us figure this out. And so that's been really rewarding. I say this and I don't have a big ego that's hungry for this kind of comment, but I think I've been offered a job at almost every client business that we've had. And every single one I've said no to. I've had people say, well, name your price. And I've still said no, because the value of being my own business and person in my little world means that I really get to decide who I want to work with. And is that fulfilling for me as well as them? And so selfishly, it's just, that's the place I'd rather be. I don't look for positions to go back. And even when things get tight and scary and it's really, there's tons of opportunities that present themselves to go back. When I really think about it, I'd rather eat rice and beans than go back into an employee role, and that's saying something. Like, I enjoy the place that we're in. So it makes it worth fighting for.
You've listed some fantastic rewards, because there are so many rewards when it comes to owning your own business. And I like how you framed that respect. There is a certain level of respect that you don't get as an employee. And yes, it is sad. And I know that you have challenges. All business owners have challenges, ups and downs with how many clients you have, market changes, pandemics, all the stuff that happen. And you still have that
Who
drive.
knew pandemics were on the list?
Oh, I know. Is there anything that, if you were to start over again, is there anything that you would do differently, knowing what you know now?
I think that when I started, it was more of a race to get revenue up for me to feel personally secure in having the finances so that we, could pay our bills and that we weren't going to starve. That's like, that was my mentality, knowing that didn't see myself as the taker. I think it took me longer to really focus the types of services that we wanted to offer into a space that I felt like those services were really rewarding to me personally and professionally. And so, meaning that, like, instead of being so fragmented to say, well, I can do anything, I can transcribe your notes. I can, take the minutes for your board. I can do a lot of things, and that still exists. I can do a lot of things. But what is it that really makes me feel good every single day about what I'm doing? And is it challenging to me personally and professionally? And does it use my talents in a way that is, really using them to their capacity? And so I think in the beginning, if I had known that then, I would have honed in our services more specifically to just be really sharp and direct on very focused areas of things that are rewarding to me. I don't think that's been necessarily a bad thing in the long run. It just took us longer, to really define that. The other thing that I think in the beginning it was more about kind of in the same vein, getting the work in kind of at, no matter what the cost, to just start building, underpriced myself. And I'm thankful that my husband, he would say in the beginning, he'd say, I want to see every proposal before you send it. And I was like, what makes you the expert on looking at proposals? That's what I'm thinking. But the one thing that he kept saying was, you need to charge people the amount of money so that when the work is awful and you don't want to do it, that you are getting paid the amount that you deserve to be paid to do it when it's hard. And I thought, well, that's an interesting perspective. I'm worried about what I think people's budgets are and how much they can afford, which obviously plays into that. But to be thinking about it from the perspective of what's my worth, what's my value, what is the cost or the rate for my versus what can you afford. There has to be a balance that you find with every client, but I didn't really think about it that way. And so it took me longer. It took me, I would say, probably a year and a half or so to really hone in on how we priced ourselves and how we packaged that to clients and how we told that story for ourselves. That's a learning process. I mean, I can't be upset about that process. That helps us be stronger in the long run. So, I'm thankful for that. But those were just things I really didn't think about how impactful they would be. And, looking back, it's like, well, yeah, why wouldn't we just do that earlier? But you kind of have to live it and find your way as you develop your company. The things that reward or that complement your greatest talents the most. It doesn't mean you still don't take on some of those other things that you can do, but that the majority of the focus is really, on the things that make you feel the best. And I think it goes back to that advice, it's kind of goes in a circle for me, but it goes back to that advice of, where am I putting where I'm 100% in? Because if I have my feet in too many places, I'm not going to really be good at any of it. I'm just going to be kind of mediocre at a lot of things, but I want to excel at a couple. And so, I don't know, it's kind of an interesting balance that doesn't ever seem to stop. It just kind of keeps evolving.
I would love to hear, do you have a favorite resource or a book that really made a difference for you professionally?
I've had the pleasure of listening to a lot of different people kind of on the for-profit side and the nonprofit side speak. And, there's a couple things. I have a lot of respect on the fundraising side. There's a woman, her name is Lynn Wester, and I've heard her speak a couple times, and I have her books. But she just has a really dynamic approach to servicing people. And I think, there's people that are really good at kind of giving away free resources to create value, to kind of draw people in and then learn more about what, that business does and then engage with them in some way. She's very straightforward, kind of very direct kind of personality. Which I have a lot of respect for. I just feel like you know where you stand with her at any given moment. But her approach from her business is really interesting to me too. And one of the things that sparked my interest about her in the beginning was that I was sitting in a session, I think for fundraising, to kind of learn about, some more of the kind of newest things that are going on in that field to work with our nonprofit clients. And, she's like, you can just go on my website and I have this whole resource page and you can look at all these samples of things. And I thought, okay, yeah, people say that all the time. And you got to put in your email address and you got to basically send in a blood sample to see what any of that stuff is.
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't like that. You went on her page and she had this whole resource library, and it wasn't like, the mediocre samples of things. It was like real stuff, like real templates of direct mail pieces, real templates of donor letters, real templates of gift agreements, real templates of, reports and design materials. And I mean, it just goes on and on and on. And it was just there. And I thought, how smart is that? How smart is it that you almost give away the best things that you've done, and in doing so, create trust and value, for people who are looking to potentially engage you or that you have brought on as clients. And I thought it's just a phenomenal resource. So I love her stuff. She does, I think, a great job with her educational materials and webinars and things too. But that resource library is just a fantastic place to go if you just need really good, credible things, to listen to. And then the other place that I think, this is kind of an unlikely source, I think, for most people, but I don't know if you're familiar with Jocko Willink's podcast, but he's, has served in I think the Marines, and has all of these kind of stories from a kind of grit and motivational and courage and bravery kind of perspective. And although he doesn't necessarily focus so much on business advice, it's more of what is our human experience and how do we show up every day, and how do we look at things from what perspective do we look at things when it gets really, and how do we condition ourselves to be up for the challenge. And so I really enjoy listening to his podcasts, and I can blame my husband for getting me hooked on some of that stuff, because he kind of listens to things in places that I wouldn't even look for it. But I think professionally, it kind of gets you, especially me, in that mindset of okay, I'm going to bring myself 100% to be present to today and get stuff done. And I don't know what tomorrow is going to be, but I know today I have control over who I'm going to be and how I'm going to show up. And I think as business owners, there's a lot of things that we get distracted by and mired down in, and some of it's fun and some of it isn't. Not everybody has teams of people that are helping them run their business. I mean, it's me and my husband, and we bring in experts as we need them to service our clients. How I show up mentally every day to that challenge is really important, because it sets the tone for how I am in front of our clients, and how I am in our family dynamic, and what difference I'm going to make today. So those two things have been really, I think, important in just helping give good perspective on interacting with clients, but also personally and professionally showing up to do the work.
Oh, thank you for sharing those resources. I'm going to put some links to those resources in the show notes, so it make it super easy for everyone to access. Merrill, I'm going to wrap up for today. How do folks find you?
So people can find us. We have a Facebook live broadcast that we're doing each week right now. So Facebook's a real easy way to connect with us, but also on LinkedIn. I have my profile up, and I know, Gayla, you're sharing all the links and everything, so people can connect on LinkedIn. I constantly watch messages and feeds. So if you have a question or someone wants to connect, it's super easy to do that. We also have our website. It's www.mabs.com. It stands for Marketing and Business Solutions. So that site has kind of an outline of everything we do, and you can connect that way as well. So I welcome, even if someone's not sure if they want to engage us, always welcome to, have a conversation and kind of learn more about their challenges and figure out if it's the right fit. I encourage people to reach out even if they're not quite sure where to go next.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for being here, Merrill. It was a pleasure. I learned a lot.
And I look forward to interacting with your team and continuing to grow our businesses together. So thank you for that.
Isn't Merrill great? Be sure to open up the show notes and get all the links to follow Merrill. Be sure to catch her Facebook Live episodes, or if you miss it, check out her YouTube channel and be sure to subscribe. All those links are in the show notes. And Merrill gave some great resources, and after the recording of the interview, I hopped over to check them out, and they're very good. You'll have Lynn Wester and Jocko's podcast links in the show notes as well. Well, thank you for listening, and if you haven't already, I'd really appreciate you subscribing to this show, and I'd be extra appreciative if you'd leave a little review. Until next time, have a fantastic week.